And I've been actually thinking so much about the definition of feminism recently because we've been in the summer of Barbie, the summer of Beyonce, Taylor Swift, and girl math and girl dinner. And there's such a celebration of girlhood. But something really feels like different in the air where it's not a feminism, like Me Too was a reaction to men. It was a response to men.
Yeah, it wasn't feminism.
I think it was.
It was just us asking men to leave us alone and not rape us anymore. It's like just normal rights.
Yes, but it was very much rooted in men and men's actions. And this feels like it doesn't really concern men. And it's not even like, oh, it's not about you. Like, we hate you. It's like, this is not about you. This is about us defining what womanhood is, what girlhood is, like as our own culture, as our own language, coming up with our own labels and our own, words and connections and sort of community. And that's a really, really new thing. I don't think that even if I think back, I don't know, I'm 36, I don't know how old you are, but like thinking back at the Spice Girls or thinking about even like Girl Boss, right? Like the 2010s and the early 2000s, it was still the idea of like, I can be just like a man. I can be just as, hungry and ambitious and take up just as much space as men, and then I'm equal to men. And this is not about proving that we're equal to men. It's not about proving that we exist. Yeah, and that we're our own people, and men actually,
and that we're very different and how beautiful those differences are.
But men actually, I feel like what I love about Liz is that she's always inviting men to the table, even with Man Enough podcast, which you've done for years now.
Yeah, we started in the pandemic actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing it, and it was like, oh, that's that really macho actor from
Jane the Virgin.
From Jane the Virgin, but he's not that guy at all.
Yeah.
He's not this machisto like guy that he was in the show, and it was really beautiful to see that and you being a part of that conversation.
And again, to your point, I think that men have been just invited, right? Like we're seeing men at Taylor Swift concerts, Beyonce concerts who are doing girl dinner, right?
They're going to the Barbie movie. And
they're going to see the Barbie movie. Yes. And it's not like, you have to act this way or you have to shut up. It's like, yeah, come to our party, but it's our party, And I think that's cool.
So what was the problem with the lean in culture? Can you explain that to people? So Lean In was a book that came out that I feel like predated what we're talking about now. Which is, I think, more, what was the problem with it?
It was 10 years ago, which is, I always think about numbers, and like, I think numbers are meaningful. And I think, it was, I'm Canadian, and I just moved to the States to work as a journalist. And so, and Lean In had just kind of came out, and it was all about this idea, right? Sheryl Sandberg.
Sheryl Sandberg, I know.
Sheryl Sandberg, who, has.
Andy Samberg?
But she had this viral TED Talk, which I remember seeing as a 22, 24-year-old, right? Sort of young woman coming out of, school, where she said, and the entire thesis of the TED Talk was so simple. It was like, negotiate your salary and telling women, by the way, men are doing this and women aren't telling each other to do this, so I'm telling you. And I had no idea. The first time I was offered a salary, like, a job, it was $35,000 a year. And I was like, thank you so much. I was like, I got to shake his hand before he takes it back. That's how I thought offers worked. And if you're listening, you should always negotiate your any offer, right? And men do it all the time. And women, didn't have that kind of, a lot of women didn't have that kind of knowledge. So it was the idea of not just that, but taking that to a whole other level in terms of being a woman in the workplace, that, lean in, don't lean out. And particularly for women who have kids or who, end up kind of pulling out of things in the workplace, like take more space and act like a man. Like I'm oversimplifying it. Obviously.
I've seen those things where they say
overconfidence or whatever.
Yeah, like people say like I pretend like I'm a white male when I write my emails or something. I've seen people
carry
say
yourself
that.
with the confidence of a white man. That was like the tote bag of 2013. And obviously it was criticized. It was celebrated, and I think it did a lot of good. But then also, it was very white. It was very centric to
that was the
women
problem.
who can afford.
It was a privileged viewpoint.
Yes,
essentially.
and girl bossing, I think, was an extension of that too, which again had good intentions, but it became the same kind of version, right?
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I love everything you're saying. I'm just tracking so much. It's like, when I see Black creators, especially female Black creators, they don't get paid nearly as much as all these like Utah moms, and it is very troubling.
Yes, and it's happening at every level of society. And if women approach feminism, if white women approach feminism as trying to get, ahead all the time instead of seeing it as freedom, and not just freedom for me, but freedom for
everyone, that it's better for everyone.
Exactly. including men,
Yes,
including
and everything in between.
Yeah.
What do you think about how do you handle the news? How do you process the news? Like when you see sexism and things happening, like does it ever take you down? And what do you think about Lizzo?
Oh, wow.
We're going there. What do I think about?
Do you mind?
I haven't read the latest on Lizzo.
Yeah, I haven't either.
Look, I think this like a whole other direction or a whole other conversation, but we talk a lot about cancel culture, but my friend Nitika Chopra always says like we need to talk about pedestal culture. We focus so much on the canceling, but why was Lizzo put on this pedestal? Again, she's incredible. I'm not saying she doesn't deserve to be praised and admired.
This is a good point.
But we put people on pedestals and then we go, "You're perfect, you're amazing," and then they make a mistake, or again, they're human, and we go, knock you out and bring you lower than any human, right? So it's like we're all equal, right? And we're all like, people are great, you're great, and you're different than me. You're different, you're doing your own thing, and we're all special and unique. But like this sort of ranking that we have,
I think to better pick other people up. Same thing with bullying, right? In school, I mean, they're just taking her down to bring themselves up.
Yes, and it's just a little, again,
especially with women. Sorry, because the Jimmy Fallon thing seems to be moving much faster than.
Yes, well, that too. We're very, and that's a little bit, coming back to Taylor Swift and Beyonce, because everything comes back to Taylor Swift and Beyonce. Actually, but like Beyonce in 2013, I remember, was called a terrorist by Bell Hooks, a very prominent feminist scholar, because she was seen as catering to the male gaze. Taylor Swift was right, like you just write about men and boys and boyfriends, and she was right. There were, when I look back at it's a little bit what happened to with the Britney doc, where we started sort of reevaluating the way that we've treated women in the past. And this is not just like, I'm not saying men said that. We did that, right?
All of us.
It's really internalized, and so I think it's really fascinating. But yeah, when it comes to sexist news, I always love a reframe. I think like I do that in my day-to-day life. I do it with news stories. And that's what I have a Substack called Airplane Mode that's all about solution-based journalism.
Yes. Solution-based.
And so
what is the solution? What is the solution? I wanted to ask, sorry, am I interrupting too much? My mother, when I was growing up and mass murders were happening, not nearly as much as they are today, my mother would be so sad.
You're talking about like Summer of Sam kind of stuff?
I'm talking about mass murders. Any kind of time a boy, usually, it is usually a man, which people get really mad if you say that. Shoots up a school. My mother made me a shirt and I wore it to school. And now I think back on it and it said, mass murder has a gender, which definitely stated out the problem, but didn't give a solution. Not as if
your mom was an angry feminist.
She was very angry. I get it because of dealing with this for so long. I mean, she would have been, she died before Trump came about, but she was really upset that we never really honed in on men. I know we're talking about not honing in on men, but really getting them the therapy they need instead of all the football that they think they need. And I just wonder, what is the solution? What is your dream for the future? What could it look like? What do we do to get out of this? And in that, talking about Taylor Swift and Lizzo and Beyonce, when Roe v. Wade was overturned, I always wonder, I know it's not their responsibility, but I always wonder where they are, why they don't speak up like you. Do they care? I know that I wonder, like they have pull. They could really move the needle. They have billions and billions of followers.
Why wouldn't they spend their political capital?
I don't know. I just know they could. Yeah, so it's money? I don't get it.
Well, money is the reason for a lot of stuff.
Of course.
But I think those are all really, really valid questions and really, really valid feelings, right? Like I think in day-to-day life and in feminist activism and journalism, right? Like all the things that we're doing, I think we have to accept and like fully process and feel the emotions that we're feeling. So on some days I'm just so pissed off and I'm so annoyed, and particularly when Roe was overturned, I was really angry. I had the same feeling that you did, but I then revert to like, okay, what is not like the positive spin? Because it's not a toxic positivity thing, but it
can't take us under. We can't go under. We gotta keep moving on.
And our brains will focus, like it's called negativity bias. It's a behavioral science principle, right? Like if there's a huge positive thing going on in your life, or many of them, but there's one negative thing, your brain is going to think about that negative thing for longer and more quickly. We process literally people frowning, right, more quickly than a person smiling at us.
Interesting.
That is going to mark us. That is going to stay with us. So yes, when Roe is overturned, that's just so sad. There's so much to be sad about and devastated about. But where the solution lies, I think, is in men's identities like when we approach men with the idea of choice and sort of abortion rights, I think that in the past, first of all, it's been seen as like a women's issue when to me, abortion has always been like a genderless issue. Like it's just
it's a medical health care.
Exactly. Exactly. And when we've approached it, we say, you should care about your mothers and your daughters and your sisters and your wives and all that stuff. And
from a moral sense.
From a moral sense, but even that makes you a little squint a little bit. You're like, why does she have to be related to you for you to care about her? Why does right? Like we're kind of sick of even hearing them do that. Yeah. And so the way that I've been approaching it is like, why aren't you strong enough to stand and protect women? Like, what about you as a man? Like, I question, like, again, and it's not you're not a real man, but I question and want to know about what does it mean for you to protect women when women are not being protected and they're being threatened right under your, watch. Yeah. And I think that a lot of men don't know what to do. And there are not a lot of models out there for them to sort of, right? There's not a lot of real bravery.
Models. So this is a solution to get more models.
Get more models. And for them, but also
more male models.
But for them to think about like, what does it mean to be a man to you? Because this isn't about me. Like obviously I'm affected because it's impacting my reproductive choice and freedom. But like, there's something wrong with you.
Can I ask you, who is the best model of healthy masculinity that's existed?
I was going to ask that. Yeah.
I mean, I know exactly the answer, and it's been the same answer for the last like decade.
Donald Trump.
Right, yeah, that's exactly. Donald.
I knew it. I knew it.
Don't even say that because somebody will like rip that off.
It's Ryan Gosling. It's Ryan
Gosling.
It's always been Ryan.
Really?
It's always been.
Yeah, I hear he's.
Really?
Ava's feminist, and I would imagine she would be with somebody.
I mean, remember the Hey Girl memes?